and I'm going to one by one call up on a few more folks who I love and respect who've been in this struggle with me. So I'm going to start with Javier Villatoro. Javier Villatoro is a two-spirited Zapoteca. They crossed the border 10 years ago and have been living on Quinnipiac land since. Currently, they are a chef and worker owner of the Tortilleria Semilla Co-Op and a member of the Semilla Collective of New Haven. They are also an avid reader and student of the armed and nonviolent revolutionary movements around the world. So give it up for Javier. I next want to call upon Gabbie Barnes.
Woo! Woo! Gabbie!
Gabbie Barnes is a Black multicultural dreamer who is living, working, surviving, and sometimes thriving in the Heartbeat, Hartford, Connecticut. She is a daughter, soul sister, plant doula, mentor, librarian, consultant, mentee, and hobby hoarder. In her spare time, she keeps her hands busy with vibrant arts, projects, and other crafts. She nourishes her body through the practice of yoga, the sport of paddleboarding, and by communing with nature through hiking. So give it up again for Gabbie Barnes. Constanza, where you at?
Constanza!
Constanza Segovia. Is a community organizer and artist owner of Veo Veo Design and Visual Note-Taking. Since 2016, she has worked as lead organizer with Hartford Deportation Defense, HDD. Yes. Give it up for HDD.
Yeah.
Representing the organization on statewide social justice coalitions like Husky for Immigrants, the Connecticut Coalition for Immigrant Freedom, and Connecticut for All. During the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, she helped start the Connecticut Undocu Fund and the Mutual Aid Hartford Network. In 2021, in 2021, she co-founded the Latinx creative project Arte Popular with others from HDD. Most recently, she became an organizer for Connecticut for All to build solidarity and lasting relationships among labor, community, and faith organizations statewide. Constanza grew up in Mendoza, Argentina, and moved to the US at the age of 17. She's formally undocumented and part of a mixed status family. She lives here in Hartford, Connecticut with her husband, Josh, her daughter, Mylene, who's here, shout out to Mylene, her stepkids, Max and Ruby, and their dog, Maybe.
Shout out to Maybe.
And then finally, I want to invite Sarah White. Sarah White is the staff attorney at the Connecticut Fair Housing Center. She's involved in tenant organizing with the Connecticut Tenants Union and the Connecticut Democratic Socialists of America, including the Right to Counsel for Tenants and Cap the Rent campaigns, and is the past co-chair of the National Lawyers Guild Housing and Homelessness Committee. So shout out to Sarah. Right. So now that I've introduced you, I want to give you a chance to check in as a human. So if you could, again, remind us your name and pronouns, and tell us what got you out of bed this morning, or what's been getting you out of bed lately. Yeah.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Good evening, beautiful people. My name is Javier Villatoro. My pronouns are they, them. And what got me out of bed this morning was the exciting idea of get to meet other fellow cooperativists, or people who are interested in cooperatives. Because to me, I think deep down, even though before I knew it, before I managed the concepts or these terms, I was already excited of being in an environment that was democratically controlled. And I think that is what brought me here today, like having those conversations that are very radical even though they are very simple at the same time, they are very radical to dream, to imagine, and to do so together. And that is what brought me here today. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me okay? So Gabbie Barnes, pronoun she, her, and what got me out of bed today was the first day in a long time that I didn't have anything to wake up and immediately go to. And so what got me out of bed was sitting slowly with a cup of coffee and being able to read a book for however long I wanted to. That felt really good. It felt really nice to start my day slowly and not just get up and go. Yeah.
Hey. Hi, everybody. I'm Constanza, she, her. And I also got out of bed with a similar motivation of not doing anything. I knew I had to be here at 1, so I was like, how early can I get up so I have the most time to do nothing? So that was, I got out of bed early to do nothing. Oh, sorry, I just...
Sarah, she, her. Most days my kids get me up out of bed at 6 a.m., but I didn't have them today. So I didn't get out of bed. I did get out of bed, then I went back to bed, and I only got up to come here, so I did finally get some rest. But I'm so happy and excited to be here with everybody and to talk about housing and tenant organizing, which is what gets me out of bed most mornings, in addition to my kids.
Yeah.
So I want to start with this term, solidarity economy. You see, again, we've heard us use this term. You see it, right, on the screen around us, right? This idea of let's grow our solidarity economy together. And I want to bring in the definition of the solidarity economy from the New Economy Coalition. They define the solidarity economy as a global movement to build a just and sustainable economy where we prioritize people and the planet over endless profit and growth. I want to just repeat that one more time. This is the high school teacher in me loves to repeat things. It's a global movement to build a just and sustainable economy where we prioritize people and the planet over endless profit and growth. And I want to hear from y'all about what that term means to you. So whoever feels moved to get us started. Yeah, what does that term solidarity economy mean to you?
So I am a librarian, that's what I do 40 hours a week. And so I came with my sources to cite. All right, so this book is called Solidarity Economics, written by 2 professors, Chris Benner, a professor of environmental studies and sociology at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and Manuel Pastor, a professor of sociology and American studies and ethnicity at the University of Southern California. And so I'd love to just read their definition so we can expand on New Economy Coalition's definition. So they define solidarity economics as having 3 basic premises. The first being that it is our economy, not the economy. It is not an abstract set of rules given by God or nature, but rather the result of our relationships, sometimes reflecting power and sometimes reflecting our mutuality. And thinking about this term economy, I just want to uplift this resource from an organization called Movement Generation Justice and Ecology Project, where you can download this on the internet. It's called The Meaning of Home. And they break down the term eco to its Greek origins. And eco is the Greek term for home. So economy meaning home and nomi being management. I highly recommend this resource. It really puts a new spin on what the economy is and how to redefine it for ourselves. The second principle is that we actually have to do better when we work and act together. While traditional economics would have us believe that selfishness is useful for generating economic progress, mutuality is, in fact, key to our collective economic well-being. And I love this point because it really emphasizes the fact that we have to combine our movements. right? Mutual aid, organizing, unions, cooperatives, right? All of us have to work together in order to move in solidarity. The third basic premise of the solidarity economy is that since some people do benefit from current arrangements, social movements are crucial. And we will only move to a better system if we are willing to band together and act in political as well as economic solidarity. And this point is it touches my heart the most because I think, for me, coming into solidarity economics was a lot about thinking about my labor and how my labor is used and defined on the market, and how, my labor should be defined by me. How much my labor is worth should be up to me, and not defined for me by an organization or an external market. I know how much my labor is worth, and I believe all of our labor is worth a lot. And so this idea that we have to be political, as well as thinking about the financials of the solidarity economy is, I think that's just very close to my heart. What about that?
Yeah, it's so much more. I mean, just to underscore that, it's so much more than just about a form of business.
Right.
Right? It's a political project. And I'm curious that, folks, and any other, what is that term, solidarity, what does that bring up for you?
Yeah, for me, the way we talk about it with people at Hartford Deportation Defense and Arte Popular is that we're creating a model where the bottom line is not individual profit, but it's community profit, it's community thriving, and creating the conditions for everybody to have a chance to thrive and hopefully thrive, right? And so in a way, for me, to engage in solidarity, in the solidarity economy is an attempt to practice what we're trying to change in this bigger systems when we engage in political work, when we engage in the work that is required to transform the toxic systems that we all live in. Building co-ops of any kind to me feels like a practice of that work that we're trying to get at the systemic level so that everybody can just have that versus having to build it as an alternative against the system.
My comrade Gabbie here mentioned home and management, and he came back to me back when I was in school before I quit. I was studying actually management, and sometimes that I mentioned was how economics was the study of the decision making of the people, decisions of people. That was economics at itself. So it also reminded me of how, what the comrade mentioned, all the decision making right now is being made thinking of profit, and profit for who, progress, but progress for who. So when we conversated around this within the Tortilleria, within our vision, we put it at the very center that what we were looking for was el buen vivir. El buen vivir is this indigenous philosophy that is looking to feel good, do good, and live good. And this is, when I mean feel good, I mean health. And I not only mean health, physical health, I also mean mental health, emotional health. And it comes down to the things that we're putting in our body, the foods that we're eating, and also our relationships, like the comrades mentioned, all of our relationships. My relationship to the water, my relationship to the air, my relationship to the people around me, to those living and non-living beings that surround me. All those relationships have to be taken into account when we are making those decisions into how we move around the earth. All of it, the things that we eat, the things that we give other people to eat, and the things that we share with each other. And I guess that is how I think about it when I think of like what solidarity economy would mean. To me, would mean an economy where we take all those relationships into account. Thank you.
So most of the work, or most of the organizing I do, is around housing, and I think in the housing context, the solidarity economy includes everything from tenant unions to housing co-ops and any number of ways of living and being together in between, including ones that we haven't even dreamed of yet. I mean, the system we have now, I mean, as folks probably all know in this room, is built around extracting money from people and profit, and then also doubly exploiting tenants and others by, preventing them from having any say over how they live. Not having security in your home, not knowing when you're gonna have to go, having to live in terrible conditions and things like that. And what we're building towards and working towards is, social housing, which would be democratically controlled by all of us, whether that's publicly owned, whether that's owned by the people that live there, that's decommodified, meaning the point isn't to make money for someone else, but for us all to have housing that we live in, which of course is something we all need, that it's green, and that it's abolitionist, so that it's decoupled from marshals and police that are kicking people out, systems that keep people from getting into housing because you have a record, and are building these communities of care in our buildings, in our neighborhoods, that can be an alternative to the police. And that can look, like I said, a lot of different ways. That could be housing co-op, limited equity co-op. We have Alex here, who's part of a project that started a bunch of co-ops for folks out of tenant organizing in Waterbury. It could be a community land trust, so many other different things. And it's gonna be a lot, I think, for us to get there. I mean, I'm still, the path there is gonna be a lot. But, one thing we can do now through tenant union organizing is start to have the power to eventually get there and begin to have a say in what our housing looks like by working together to, offer support to each other, childcare, mutual aid, but also, shifting things with our, with landlords. So that's what I think of in the context of housing, what the solidarity economy includes. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think part of what we want to do now is talk about those pathways, right? And it's going to be hard, and it's happening, right? We're walking those paths right now, and co-ops are one of those pathways towards a solidarity economy. And Javi, I want to ask you to tell us, what is a co-op, first of all? And start there. What is a co-op?
Well, cooperative, as defined by the Statement on Cooperative Identity, is an autonomous association of people united voluntarily to meet their common economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. So in a few words, it's all power to the people. We decide what is best for us. We know what is best for us, so we choose that for us.
And can you tell us about the journey you and your fellow worker owners have been on with the Tortilleria to start a co-op and operate a co-op these past few years?
Sure. As I mentioned before, I am a member of the Semilla Collective of New Haven, which is a grassroots organization that fights for the rights of immigrant and working people on Quinnipiac land, also known as New Haven. And the Semilla Collective has worked for labor rights for a long time. We fought labor cases trying to get money back from workers, wages that were stolen. And we also did a lot of mutual aid where we gave food and cash to people that were left out of the federal programs because of their immigration status. And while doing this, mutual aid, we were also conversating around what would it look like for us to come together in a space where the people who are giving out the help and are receiving the help don't have a barrier in between them. You know, it might be economic barriers, it might be educational barriers, it might be just cultural barriers sometimes, but there was definitely barriers that we were trying to conversate around how to come together in a way that was more reciprocal. So this has been a dream for the people in the Semilla Collective. Having a tortilleria has been a dream for a long time. Even before I joined, they were already talking about having a tortilleria. Having this tortilleria to revitalize the culture, to bring native corn, you know, heirloom corn from Mexico, bring it to the States, make our own food, make our own tortillas, food sovereignty. And at this point, we didn't even know what a cooperative was. We might be familiar with the term, but we didn't really know what it was. So what we did was we started doing field trips. We went to the Willimantic Food Co-op and we spoke to them about their democratic process to make decisions. The comrades went to Philadelphia to the conference of the Cooperative Federation of the United States, and they received workshops there. We took a lot of workshops with the Cooperative Development Institute. Shout out to my comrade Pavel, who has shared so much knowledge with us. And more than share knowledge, he actually put us to practice this thing, you know, to talk among each other. Because even though we might know what solidarity means, we might have a different understanding of it when it comes down to it. So they actually sat us down and made us conversate with each other around ourselves, around life, but mainly focusing, these workshops were mainly focusing on communication and how we communicate with each other. Like active listening, you know, like even paraphrasing in moments where we might be disagreeing, you know. Like we also learned that conflict is natural. It's very, very natural to have conflict within our organizations. You know, we're not going to be on the same page all the time, and that is actually good, because if we were in the same page all the time, we wouldn't see, you know, when we are mistaken, we would just follow forward. So we did a lot of conversating about what consensus meant to us, you know. Even though we already made decisions through consensus at the Semilla Collective, we actually had more conversation within ourselves, within the framework of the tortilleria, to learn what it would look like for us. Because at least in my case, you know, I understood that a lot of the times, actually listening to my comrade and bending and going with other vision that was different to mine was more productive than just pushing forward for my own vision. And this sounds very beautiful, like talking about consensus sounds very beautiful. And at the same time, I think we all know that it gets dirty, you know? It gets dirty once you get to it, once you have those conversations. And if I can tell you one thing, is I think it's worth it, you know? I think it's definitely worth it to go in and have those conversations with your comrades and to check in with your comrades, you know, to see what they think, what their vision is, and to actually get together to see that the things that we're talking about when we say solidarity, we mean the same thing, you know, or at least we are in a somehow same page so that we together can move forward.
It's worth it.
It's definitely worth it.
Gabbie,
Varun.
can you tell us about what mutual aid means to you? You're part of the steering committee of the Mutual Aid Hartford Network, and tell us about mutual aid. What is mutual aid? And then what is Mutual Aid Hartford?
Sure. Resource number 2, Dean Spade. Dean Spade, Mutual Aid, Building Solidarity through through this crisis and the next. So this came out in the middle of COVID lockdown because mutual aid became a very popular term. Not necessarily the popularity of mutual aid happening. Mutual aid has been happening for a very long time and in very many contexts. But I'm going to read Dean's definition. Mutual aid is a collective coordination to meet each other's needs, usually from an awareness that the systems we have in place are not going to meet them. They directly meet people's survival needs, are based on shared understanding that the conditions in which we are made to live are unjust. And then there are, by Dean's definition, 3 key elements of mutual aid. The first, mutual aid projects work to meet survival needs and build shared understanding about why people do not have what they need. 2, mutual aid projects mobilize people, expand solidarity, and build movements. And 3, mutual aid projects are participatory, solving problems through collective action rather than waiting for saviors, because only we are going to save ourselves. Okay, so that's Dean Spade's definition, and I don't disagree with it, so that is why I chose to share it. I am part of Mutual Aid Hartford. Constanza here is part of a much larger group of people who got Mutual Aid Hartford off the ground in the middle of the COVID lockdown and crisis. Other amazing people like Ra over there are to thank for getting so many people the basic survival needs that they needed at that time. I was not a part of Mutual Aid Hartford during that time. My skills and expertise were being used in other places, but so I'm going to read the cards that you all have access to. They're on the tables in the back. That give a little bit of the history of Mutual Aid Hartford up until this point, and then I can speak sort of from my entry point, which only happened about a year or so ago. So in March 2020, a group of mothers and community members formed to address the challenges posed by COVID-19. They managed and redistributed over $80,000 in grassroots raised funds, along with a substantial amount of food and supplies like diapers. In 2020 and 2021, they initiated projects like the Community Fund, Community Food, and a social support network. From 2001 to the present, Mutual Aid Hartford shifted its focus to building community power and have recently expanded with new projects including the Black Mama's Giving Circle, the Free Hart Closet, which I will talk about, and Soulful, which is a homeschool supported network group. The current vision of Mutual Aid Hartford is a physical space known as the Imaginal Cell, which will serve as a hub for collaborative projects, community organizing, art, healing, and movement building in Hartford. So basically, Mutual Aid Hartford is a group of, can I swear? Badass individuals who have been working to meet each other's needs on the ground, and today we are trying to expand what it means to support each other outside of crisis. We were born in crisis, and many of us have become, I think, we operate in crisis with ease, which is a trauma response. And now we're trying to say, okay, we know another crisis is coming. This period between crises, where do we find sustainability? Where do we slow down, and where do we build the systems and structures for us to support ourselves at a pace that we can actually sustain?
And now let's talk about Free Hart. I know you, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, celebrated your 1-year anniversary since opening the Free Hart Closet. And yeah, I wonder if you could tell us more about the Free Hart Closet and how it fits into mutual aid. Yeah, mutual aid.
Yeah. So Free Hart Closet is a little bit of a fever dream that came to life. It is a free art supply trading post located here in Hartford at 56 Arbor Street in the Real Artways Plaza. So essentially, I'm a hobby hoarder. That was in my bio. I don't know if you caught that, but I'm a hobby hoarder. I have ADHD. I'm constantly like, that's a cool thing. I would like to try that. Buy all the supplies, and then a week later, I'm no longer interested, and now I have five reams of yarn and knitting needles that I'm never going to use again. And I had this thought of like, there are probably a lot of people who are like me and have a closet full of art supplies that they're never going to use. These were very expensive, and someone else should be able to use them. And if you are someone like me who is constantly trying to try new art projects, knowing that they're not going to last, spending $100 to do that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like such a waste of resources. And then, like many of us, I was on TikTok because what else were we doing in the pandemic? And I saw a TikTok by a woman named Claire out in Sacramento. She's part of an artist collective who they created an free art supply trading post for artists in California. And I was like, wait, we could totally do that here in Connecticut, why not? And I honestly, the details of how it all came to be are long and arduous and whatever. Pretty much got it up and running. And I reached out to mutual aid, to some of the folks at Mutual Aid Hartford and said, you know, I really do think that this is mutual aid. You know, we're redistributing resources. How do you feel? And we had a long conversation because the definition says we're meeting survival needs, right? And many people would say, well, art supplies are not a survival need. And I 100% disagree with that. I think that without books, without music, without, even just like text, right? Like the words that we read, that's art. Someone created a font. We have to have these things in order for us to have culture. Without these things, we don't have culture, and without culture, what do we have? I also struggle with the idea that we are only ever trying to meet our survival needs. We are so much more than just, feeding ourselves and sheltering ourselves and being safe. We have the capacity, we are creative, all of us are creative individuals and deserve access to the things that make our hearts sing, the things that allow us to feel human. And so with that, I'm very fortunate that, the folks at Mutual Aid Hartford were like, yeah, no, we're on board. Let's like push beyond thinking that, food, shelter, and safety are the only things that are our survival needs. And that's kind of how we got here. And we're open tomorrow. We're open every Sunday, 11 to 4. You can come shopping, or you can come just, look at the space if you're curious. Or if you have a closet full of art supplies that you're not using, feel free to make a contribution to the closet.
Constanza.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, thank you.
You are many things. One of them. But you in particular. No, I'm kidding. But you, one of the things that you are is an organizer with Connecticut for All.
Yes.
I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about Connecticut for All and the things you're fighting for.
So Connecticut for All is a coalition that used to be called Recovery for All. It formed during the pandemic. And similarly, it was just a product of the various crises that were coming to a halt, and it grew out of a need for us to build independent political power in Connecticut so that we could really demand the things that our people need, and by our people I mean the multiracial working class. So what Connecticut for All does is bring together labor organizations, community organizations, and faith organizations in order to build a fighting movement to end the crisis of inequality that we have in Connecticut. We are ground zero for race inequality, gender inequality, and economic inequality. So to get real about that and to get real about what we need in order to change those systems, which is we need to be organized and we need to be united.
And that word, you used the word hobby hoarding, Gabbie, earlier, right? Like hobby hoarding is one thing, but there's a lot of resource hoarding, right? We talked about at the beginning, right? 1 in 10, when I read that statistic, 1 in 10 Connecticut residents is a millionaire or a billionaire. Right?
Yeah.
And 1 in 10 people are below the federal poverty line. And that level is so low, right? there's so many more people experiencing poverty than that statistic captures, right? That's fundamentally, yes, there has to be a shift. There has to be, and that's going to require political power.
And in a way, I think we have to believe that there can be a shift, right? And for that, we have to do the work required to engage in that shift, right? Like, it's not going to happen by itself. It's not going to happen because we want it to happen, right? It's only going to happen if we are in the practice of forcing it to happen. And for that, we need to fight against the forces that are hoarding all of the resources. We need to protect our basic human rights, right? Like, we need to fight for our right to housing. We need to fight for our right to make art. We need to fight for our right to choose our own leaders. We need to fight for our right to have our public dollars go to the things that we believe in. And we see it every day. If we don't fight for it, and it just won't, it will not happen. And we are dealing with powers that are very organized. So when I say fighting, I really want to underline, like, it's not just being angry and just, posting on social media that we're angry about it, but we have to actually do the work of building organizations that can fight against these highly organized threats.
Yeah, organizations and coalitions, so, right, part of, right, Connecticut for All is bringing labor, right, community, faith together, and that's part of why we're here, right, is we're bringing, right, it's gonna take working across sectors, across movements, right, to really build the kind of power at the scale that we need to really move the needle.
And I think this is where the co-op work, to me, becomes so important, because, like Javi was saying, when we're building co-ops, when we're engaging in the building of a cooperative project, we're practicing, like, good governance, right? We're practicing conflict resolution. So when we go and build social movement organizations, political organizations, coalitions, among all of those formations, we need to then practice also good governance and good conflict resolution, and to also understand that if we have a clear vision, we can disagree, right? Like, I'm just not gonna repeat what Javi said so well, but, like, disagreement is part of the work, and we have to be able to still find a way to work together, can disagree, but we can also keep moving forward, because we do have a vision that is possible, but it's only possible if we manage to do that work. And it's not easy, but we have to. I think co-ops are, like, a really great kind of, like, working lab. Like, I think I've talked a lot about how with Hartford Deportation Defense, we have the Arte Popular project that is our co-op project. And through that work, like learning how to build a co-op, we have learned so much about how to have a better organization for Hartford Deportation Defense, because we have learned so much about how to make decisions better, how to disagree, how to, like, building the governance. And, I just cannot stress enough, like, this work is just practice, and we have to do it, and co-ops are such a great way to practice what we need more people to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we live in a country that loves to, in the state that, like, celebrates this concept of democracy, right? But we practice it so little, mm-hmm. right? We're, in the Constitution state, right? That, like, but right, and we think of them, we hear that word democracy, we think of voting, right? But it's like, it's so much more than that, right? And I think it's, it's like, how can we create democracy at the level of the interpersonal relationship? How can we create democracy at the level of the business, of the organization? And then, right, with the long-term goal of how can we create democracy at the society, at the economy level, right? And we have to start somewhere. And actually, speaking of co-ops, could you tell us a little bit more about Arte Popular? and
Yeah,
how
so-
the journey you've been on, right, and with Pavel and right, like
We've also been working with CDI in Massachusetts. So Arte Popular started because we knew, I feel like so related to what Javier and Gabbie said, because we knew that we are all engaging in this immigrant justice work together, but we also, a lot of us are artists, right? And we had seen how that was coming up in our spaces, and we are all like, we're finding out kind of by chance that this one member would do this thing that was like really wonderful, and and I'm an artist, and someone else in our leadership team does amazing like work with fabric, and we were all thinking like, how great would it be to give room for this, right? And we started reflecting on like what the value was to us, right? Like to kind of, because let's be real, like we had to kind of justify to ourselves, like we could take time to do this. But then while doing that, we also were like, this is really important for other people to have the chance to engage with their hands and also to get a chance to connect with each other through making, through creating something new. And a lot of times we're involved in this like very long game work. And it's nice to be able to sit down and like start a thing, learn a new thing, and then finish it. So we, like all of these things like had so much value to us that we decided to start the project. And truly, it wasn't very ambitious at first, and then it just kept growing and growing, and we started learning about, like we had one workshop with the U.S. Federation of Co-ops, and we just loved what they were talking about and how, like, the governance, the shared leadership, the rotation of roles, like a lot of things that just really fit to what we needed as an organization. And then we got the opportunity to be in this workshop with Pavel, and we've just been learning a lot and making really wonderful things. We had a year where last year we did 22 workshops at the library where we had all sorts of activities for people, and they were all in Spanish, and they were all free, and they all provided childcare and food, and it's kind of like being able to do things on our own terms too, and knowing that it's possible really was like a wonderful luxury. So we had a lot of fun, and that's why it just keeps going, because none of us have time for any of it. But it's at the same time, we know how valuable it is, and I really do think it's part of our survival. Like, it's such a key part. So I am really proud that it's part of our work, and that we can give room for more artists to just take time to do that work, especially immigrant artists, because a lot of times we come to this country and we kind of like decide like we have to put everything else aside and just work. And I know that's actually the experience of a lot of people who are born here and grown up here, but definitely for immigrants, like we've talked about how that's been our experience. So it's nice to be able to put time for art and creativity and know that it's okay. Like we need that.
It's worth it.
It's worth it.
Sarah, can you tell us, I want to bring another term in, again, that I just use it and kind of like expand upon it. Workplace democracy. What is that? And can you segue into the journey you've been on with the Center for Fair Housing to organize and become more worker self-directed and democratic as a workplace?
Right, so I'm going to talk about workplace democracy from my experience as a nonprofit worker for probably the last 15 years. And I will say it probably took me 10 years to even see myself as a worker, which was really key in my thinking. Are there any nonprofit workers, past or present, in the room? I know there are.
Raise your hand if you work for a nonprofit.
So, I mean, to me, workplace democracy means really having a say in decision making. And that doesn't necessarily mean all decisions. Workplace democracy can be a spectrum. It's about finding like the right mixture for your group of folks, for your workplace. It can change over time, but having a say in like, where is the organization going? What direction are we moving in? What work am I doing on a daily basis in a broader sense? Like what like my development looks like in terms of like growing, learning, taking on new kinds of work, and then also having like relationships of accountability that aren't necessarily hierarchical, that are, you know, mutual and based in like trust and having real feedback with other folks. So that's sort of what I'm looking for, but I think there's also room for people to have their own definitions, but it's not just one thing. It's like, I think working towards that shared decision making. And what Gabbie, what you said about like having, like getting to say what your labor is worth just really resonated with me and is something I'm thinking about also.
And I could sit here and have this conversation all night, and I want to, but I'm going to keep us moving just for the sake of time. And I want to make sure we highlight the really life-saving work that you're doing with the Connecticut Tenants Union, really fighting and winning, right, against slumber. So yeah, tell us more for folks who aren't aware of some of the work you're doing. What is the Connecticut Tenants Union, and yeah, what are you up to?
Can I also talk about the Fair Housing Center too?
Yes.
So, okay. I mean, with the Connecticut Tenants Union, something that's really shifted in the last few years is we have this really vibrant, growing tenants movement all across the states, with tenants organizing together in their buildings and their neighborhoods and cities to try to have collective power to shift things so they have more control over their living conditions, so landlords aren't raising rent, so things are getting fixed. So eventually we're building towards the place where we have enough power and knowledge to just run things ourselves and not have to rely on exploitative landlords, and also trying to shift things at the state level. So we improve the laws so tenants have more protections, tenants can organize so that we can, live the lives we all should, having our basic needs met, and so much more possibility and connection to really live full, vibrant lives. And for the Fair Housing Center, I want to talk a little bit about that, because as Varun mentioned, the journey we have been on is, exploring becoming a worker-directed nonprofit, which is like the nonprofit version of a co-op. And this came out with us in 2019. Workers there originally thinking we wanted to form a union to deal with issues with pay, but also feeling like we weren't looped into decisions and communications. And then, as a lot of management left, us realizing that we had all of the collective knowledge and experience ourselves to run things and didn't really feel like we needed to have a new executive director or have someone come in. And it's been a journey over the last year. We've been working with a lot of folks, learning together, trying to figure out what structure we also want to have, but also realizing that we really need to build our skills first before we decide on what structure we want our organization to have. So we're focusing now on having training around communication, around giving feedback, around facilitation and things like that, and implementing more shared decision making so that things aren't totally top down. And something I've learned about worker-directed nonprofits, which is probably true of co-ops as well, is that there are so many different ways to do this. And once you break away from the idea that every organization or business needs to have a boss and workers, and there's so much flexibility around what your organization can actually look like. It doesn't have to be totally flat or horizontal. It can be any number of things. It can change over time, and that can be challenging, but it's also incredibly exciting and gives us the chance to have organizations and relationships with our colleagues and comrades that actually match the work we're doing and help move it forward.
Yes, nonprofit co-ops. Love it.
And it's worth it.
I'm with it.
I'm gonna sadly move us to close. Sadly, no, I mean tonight isn't over, y'all. I hope you know we are we're still gathering. We have an after party at the Semilla Cafe, different than the Semilla Collective. Semilla Cafe, Hartford's living room on Main Street. So if you want to continue this conversation, we'll be there until 10 p.m. with more good food and drinks and vibes. And so I want to invite us to continue this conversation, but just to like give us a final, opportunity to say one more word or a few more words. I want to bring us back to the beginning of this journey in January when we started this advisory board. We talked about this idea from Ricardo Levens Morales, Minneapolis-based Boricua artist and organizer, who talks about this idea that the soil is more important than the seeds. This idea that we need to attend to the conditions, right? Not just start new organizations, new businesses, new movements, but we need to think about what is the culture, what is the infrastructure needed to make sure that those interventions can survive and thrive. And that's, again, if I were to summarize what we're here to do with Cooperate Connecticut, it is let's do the soil work. All of us, there's so many different seeds being planted right now, right? Like I said, we're in a groundswell moment. There's so many, every week I meet someone new who's starting a co-op. Every week, right? And I hope a year from now, 2 years from now, that we're all still here in it. Right. And that's gonna require attending to the conditions, right? And so I think that's really the work that we're up to, we gotta do here. And so I just wanna ask you all to close, what is a change you wanna see in the soil here in Connecticut, here in this land, to make the shift towards cooperation and solidarity more possible? So if you were to just give us a little nugget, like what is one one change in the soil that you hope to see, or that you're actively working on? And maybe Sarah, we can start with you and then come back down.
Yeah, I mean, something I've been thinking about with my own workplace and also with organizing is how so many of us, because we live in such an individualistic culture, don't have the skills to work through conflict together, to work together, and just really wanting to see more training and learning around that, which I know I need and seems like something that's applicable in so many different projects.
Yes, second that. If I have to pick one thing, I'll pick language justice. Just being able to have spaces where everybody can participate in the language that they're most comfortable speaking.
Let's see. An increase of class consciousness. I think if you are not one of those 1 in 10 millionaires, like, we need to recognize that our labor is being exploited, and I want to see us taking back our labor by creating entities that we own and that we operate.
And if you are one of those 1 in 10 here in the room, give us your money.
Yes. Please give me money. Thank you.
A lot of you.
Sorry, I had to.
All of it.
Thank you, Cobra.
Land bank. Land bank, indeed, I think it comes down to the land. I think it comes back to us being in a relationship. Like going back to what I said before, the relationships that we have with the living and non-living beings. There is this very wise indigenous knowledge that says that when we live, we gotta live 7 generations. Thinking about 7 generations, there's 3 generations that passed, we are the 4th, and then we gotta think forward for the 3 generations that are coming ahead of us. And echoing what the conference said, like being very aware of our relationships with each other, like the way that we treat each other. Por favor, gracias. Buenos dias, like those things are very important sometimes. Like I be forgetting, and that's something I would like to keep working on. Oh, I just wanted to say that Tortilleria Semilla has dough in the back, if you wanna get masa. So masa, next time I like dough, so if you want to get some dough, it's $12 for 3 pounds, so please get it before we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, get some dough, stop by and get the Hartford Press Co-op, get another print, take a photo with Joe, our photographer, who's also been recording this conversation so that we can make this available to more people. If there's, I believe, more food in the back, so please eat the food. And I just want to say a couple things about what's coming next. And I'll try to go through this really quickly, y'all, because I want to honor your time. Our intention is to gather at least once a quarter as a network. So this is the kickoff, and I hope to see you all in 3 months to continue this conversation, to continue to deepen our relationships and deepen our understanding of what it's going to take to really build this solidarity economy. We're going to be starting in a Google group so we can communicate with each other, so not just me communicating to you, but we can talk to each other, share action alerts, share resources, opportunities. We'll start a WhatsApp group, and that's partly why we've been, thank you for registering for today, so we can stay in touch with you. We're going to be launching a website where we can kind of host resources, right? Create a resource hub for folks. Now we don't have to recreate the wheel. There's so many great resources out there. I know I've just been so excited hearing about the need for training selfishly or selflessly, because I'm part of a co-op that does training in some of these cooperative principles and practices. And so, shout out to the People's Saturday School.
Shout out.
And then we'll be launching this coming year. We're looking to launch a series of focus groups to collect data and stories to really ultimately publish a report on the state of our cooperative ecosystem, so that we can get more funding behind this work and really help us understand, right, really what are some of the what are the needs, right? We have some assumptions or some hey, Mylene. Mylene is like, you need to wrap this up, Varun. And then we'll also be launching a study group this spring. So be on the lookout for more information. We'll be launching the Economics for Emancipation study group, which is a curriculum that comes out of Center for Economic Democracy. And hopefully, again, seeding. I'm just going to manifest this, right? That we have a co-op conference, that we have a co-op academy that emerges, that we have a Center for Employee and Tenant Ownership that emerges. Working groups, so we're doing some of the policy advocacy that we need. So, but we're gonna need you to make that possible. So I'm gonna make sure I'll follow up with you after this with a survey, so I can get a sense of who's on board with us. Careful, my man. Okay. Let me know if we're looking on our advisory board that founded this project. We're wrapping up a 1-year term, and so we are looking for more folks interested in joining us to help shape this project. And so I really, again, hope this isn't the last time we get to be with each other. Again, this is really the start of something really special. I believe, I'm biased, but I really believe that deeply. I just want to give a couple of thank yous before, again, really saying goodbye for now until we see you at the after party. So I want to thank our founding advisory board. Thank you. Well, first, thank you. Thank you, Javi. Thank you, Gabbie. Thank you, Constanza. Thank you, Sarah. I want to thank also. Yeah. I want to thank Jasmine. I want to thank Jeff, Linda Luz, Slate, who couldn't be here today, who also are all part of this advisory board. I know it's not easy taking time out of, again, like you said, we don't have the time, right? But we make the time. And I want to thank Sonchaneques Rebeldes. I want to thank Masam and Latoya for nourishing us with their food. And there's, again, more good food. I want to stress, really more good food coming. Yes. Thank you, Grace, for interpreting for us. I know interpreting for this long. I know this is a long amount of time to interpret along, so thank you.
Hero.
And thank you to the Center for Fair Housing for providing the interpretation equipment.
Yes.
Thank you to Joe. Thank you to Q. Thank you to Helen for helping to document this event. Thank you to the Cooperative Fund of the Northeast for your investment in our collective future. Thank you to Maggie. Thank you to Steve. And Johan, Carolyn, Maggie, Mayrana, who aren't here today, but who've been guiding me through this journey. Thank you to Reset, Sarah, Catrice, Helen, Amy. The Universal Healthcare Foundation of Connecticut covered all our food. Thank you to the Universal Healthcare Foundation and specifically Caprice for really making that commitment. I didn't even ask. She was like, let me pay for the food. And I want to see more of that.
Yeah.
That's my comrade.
Thank you to Trinity College Community Action Gateway. Thank you to Erica, who allowed us to use this space. Just a note on this space, we have to be out of here by 7 p.m., but don't, so can't stay here forever. And please stick around, and if you have questions, or if you, again, there's someone that you want to, follow up and have a one-on-one with, please, let's, or a vendor that you didn't get a chance to learn more about, please, don't rush out of here. And then I want to thank all of the businesses and organizations that have been here today. Hartford Press Co-op, Arte Popular, Hartford Deportation Defense, Soulco, Bubong, shout out to you. Mercado Popular, right? Shout out to Josie and her incredible installation. Mutual Aid Hartford and Lauren Little Edutainment. Shout out to the Free Hart Closet. Shout out to Tortilleria Semilla Collective of New Haven. Shout out to Bridgeville Cooperative in Bridgeport. Little Line Collective, who's are also going to be supplying drinks this evening at our after party. Thank you to Breakfast, Lunch, and Dinner, to Cafeteria Media, to New Dope, to the People Saturday School again. And thank you to you for blessing this the inauguration of this network with your presence. I'm so glad to be in this fight alongside you, and I'm excited to continue to build this network together. So thank you, and again, I hope that see you again soon. If you have any questions, again, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Happy to sit down with you. This is really, again, just the beginning. And I just want to say this one piece. May the day come, perhaps in a few decades or a few generations, where this network becomes irrelevant and obsolete. Where we no longer have to organize for indigenous sovereignty or workers' rights or healthy food or affordable housing or universal health care, because we just have simply learned to live together in harmony with each other and with nature. So, right, and we can just get together and hang out. And we're gonna do a little bit of that tonight, and then we have a lot of work to do. I have to say that, because may it be so.
Yeah.
May it be so
indeed.
Thank you.